一体何なんだ。友達だ。
Let's seize the day. Hold hands as the breaks away. Let's seize the day. Hold hands as the breaks away. Let's seize the day. Hold hands as the breaks away. You can do it. You can do it.
I watched the entire Naruto anime in 2021 and then wrote 60,000 words about it because I fucking loved it.
So is it a review?
No, it's just things I liked. It's 8 separate topics I wanted to talk about. This video covers these topics, and they're pretty much isolated from one another, so if you're not interested in one, you can just skip to the next one. Think of it like an album where each topic is a different track. Only this project is split across 3 videos, like a double album. Or, I guess, a triple album. I have a lot I want to say about Naruto, but I figured it was best to start this project with something probably nobody has made a video about. Why did I watch Naruto? It seems like an irrelevant question, but I find myself often curious as to what gets people into stuff. I'll get to my reason in a second, but this got me thinking about the factors that influence our enjoyment of something. I didn't enjoy Naruto just because it's a good show. My environment and choices primed me to love it. I feel like I succeeded in becoming a Naruto fan, and it would have been my loss if I hadn't. Contrary to popular belief, to me, it's not the art failed to entertain me, but I failed to be entertained. The point of this stuff is to extract value from it, whatever it may be. So it's a loss of your attention and time if it doesn't. It's not the art's L, it's yours. Aw, you didn't enjoy Naruto? Skill issue. The more L's you take, the sooner you'll quit. And that's what I want to avoid. It's easy to assume I'll be an anime fan forever, but it's not safe to assume. Growing out of love with a passion happens all the time, not just with stuff you did as a kid, but for anything you don't make consistent time, attention, and care for. This sort of thing never gets talked about because it might not seem that interesting or important. And I can only speak on my experience. Classic YouTuber, gotta make it all about me! What else can I say? It's not called Everyone Tube. But I do think what I have to say can apply to anyone, not just Naruto fans, because everyone's experience with art is different. Our history, circumstances, and context play a role in developing our taste, our niche, our perspective on art in general. It's not just about why did we choose that art, but how, where, when, with who did we experience that art? Did we take anything away from it or not? No matter if that art is Naruto or anything else, the point is to keep those flames of passion alive. That will of fire. Okay, but why Naruto? Well, it wasn't Naruto at first. It was the start of the pandemic, and I just moved in with my college friends, and we decided to watch Bleach as the long piece of media we consumed while stuck at home. So when I finished Bleach at the end of 2020, I thought, okay, that's one of the big 3 down. Let's go with Naruto next. And One Piece would be after that. My roommates were a major factor to my enjoyment because they had been Naruto fans for years. The good kind that don't caveat it with, it has its flaws every minute. It was very encouraging to watch the anime and report on different milestones to them, sometimes watching it with them, and discussing what we liked about it. I was in a positive in-person environment. I didn't feel pressured to like it, and I wasn't rebuked for being salty during some of the low points, which I felt there were a few. Some viewers aren't so lucky. They might watch something with someone who already dislikes that media, or with somebody who is very critical or opinionated. I know this because I was that guy at a number of group watches. I was insufferable back in those days before I had an online presence. I used to get so hot and bothered over something I didn't enjoy, always thinking that my takes were the correct ones. There's probably a lot of fans that are still in that phase, but I'm glad that I mostly worked it out of my system. Of course I can still feel upset or disappointed when I'm not enjoying something, but I've learned to keep it contained, measured, and to quickly move on to something I do find enjoyment in. In-person environments are one thing, but this matters with online spaces too. If you immerse yourself in a culture or hang out with a crowd that's cynical or polarizing about media, it can bleed into your experience with that media. Becoming aware of your environment can help you better understand why you feel the way you do about something. While there is an ongoing sequel still airing, I was also drawn to Naruto's anime for experiencing a complete story. It's frustratingly rare with manga adaptations. Naruto is still long, but now it doesn't feel endless. You have the whole picture. There's no more speculation or potential to fuss with. This made me feel safe from all the bellyaching discourse that I was seeing as an outsider, though it sometimes does flare back up whenever someone brings up that Sakura scene. I experienced a bunch of Naruto through osmosis, seeing it around, hearing about this and that. I couldn't escape hearing about how bad the 4th Great Ninja War arc was, but when I finally got to it, I thought it was fine at worst and pretty awesome at best. Now that the dust has settled and most fans have moved on, it feels like now is the time to check it out. Several big creators like Rogers Base and Totally Not Mark, among others, make that seem like a common sentiment. We all know negativity on here spreads faster than positivity, and I think that sour impression while it was airing infected the environment around Naruto, so it seemed like something to avoid. It's way too long anyway. But that's because those longtime fans were jaded and exhausted. I don't blame them after having this story drip-fed to them week after week, year after year for over 15 years. Never mind waiting 3 more years for the anime to finish. That malaise is contagious and creates a toxic environment that turns new fans away from trying it. Which also isn't helped by so-called fans talking out their ass, misrepresenting a series they haven't gone back to since they were kids. This has led to a sort of counter-movement, reappraising Naruto, rereading and analyzing it in a holistic and thoughtful way, which you can do now that it's a finished work. Basically, I have those creators to thank for framing Naruto as something I should seek out instead of something to avoid. This is just conjecture, but I think another thing that got in the way of some fans' enjoyment at the time was all the comparing and competition between similar stories published in the same magazine. We still see it today with the current manga coming out now. It's inevitable and a natural thing to do, especially with how these stories borrow various tropes from each other. I watched several other Jump anime throughout the year alongside Naruto, and I made a conscious effort to not make it a competition to see which anime was the best, because I remember making that mistake in the past. I would watch certain anime together as a way of comparing the two, like the original Battleship Yamato and the 2199 remake together, or Hajime no Ippo and Ash no Jo together, because they're the same length and both about boxing. What would happen is, one anime would always get favored over the other, but I really could have enjoyed both of them instead of getting caught up in which one was better. That's why I figure watching Naruto at the same time as Bleach and One Piece as they were all coming out was not exactly a healthy environment for fans. I'm sure it was also an exciting time, like a sort of golden era of fandom. There is an element of fun when it comes to harmless tribalism, but it might also get in the way of basic enjoyment of the stories themselves. I had not seen any of the big 3 until 2020, and I watched each of them separately. So there wasn't any close comparing or nitpicking or arguing if the story already peaked here or there, or who could be who in a fight. Not to knock those forms of enjoyment completely. They can be really fun, and theory crafting can be fulfilling if you guess right. Props to those guys who figured out Toby's identity before the reveal. But that's why I'm personally avoiding these newer Jump anime until they're done. Even without that needless comparing, the speculative tunnel vision that comes with reading or watching as it releases each week can potentially sour the experience and lead to disappointment. At least it probably would for me. Maybe that's the fun of it for you. That's cool. Classic centrist shapes. One of the benefits to watching after the fact, for the anime in particular, is the issue of filler. I try to be an educated viewer. With the benefit of hindsight, I was able to learn where all the filler was and plan accordingly. I still watched all of it for reasons I'll explain elsewhere, but this meant I could actually hop around a little, watching all the adapted material together and all the filler together. My patented Naruto Shapes order. That's such a bad idea. It looks something like this. I'm absolutely not saying you should watch Naruto like this. It's simply what worked for me. I love discussions of watch orders, but my rule of thumb is, so long as you enjoy what you watched, it does not matter how you watched. Just by seeing Naruto posted all the time, I was spoiled to a lot of the twists and character deaths. But I've talked about spoilers before. It's all about context and execution, which are much harder to spoil. And to me, if the series is good enough, it can't actually be spoiled by spoilers. I'm not saying being spoiled is optimal. That's simply what my experience was for Naruto. And it's not like I was spoiled on everything, but I appreciated having a vague idea on the general arc of the story. I wasn't impatient for something to happen, or anxious about whether such and such character would get a good moment. I knew how much was left, and wasn't stressed about when or if the final conflict would happen. I think having that anticipation for the end of the series was preferable to aimlessly wondering if this long story manages to stick the landing. I believe, for the most part, experiencing a story from hindsight is a lot better than as it's being released. I say most part since I am catching up on One Piece right now, but let's see how much I enjoy the material from the point I'm up to date versus enjoying every single previous arc with a bit of anticipation and hindsight. The ending to that series is just the only one I personally want to be there for. You know, as an outsider, you're bound to hear about what the One Piece is, but maybe anticipating that ending will help new viewers, like it did for me with Naruto. Now, you may be wondering, how on earth am I able to watch such long anime? Something fans don't often emphasize is just how engrossing and addictive these series can get. So not only does it not feel like hundreds of episodes, you might even appreciate that it's hundreds of episodes. But the real secret, for me at least, has always been having a watch plan. For Naruto, I set my goal to be 2 episodes a day. That's 730 episodes in 1 year. So I started Naruto January 1st, and it took 1 full year to complete it. Having a watch plan and end goal really propels me with such long forms of media and helps me not feel burnt out, neither watching it too fast or too slow. Now, that's not to say I'm strictly watching only those episodes at a time at a certain time of day, though that could work for some people. I keep it super flexible. This isn't a job clocking in and out to watch anime. I've been doing 3 episodes a day with One Piece, but it's so bingeable, 3 episodes just isn't enough. So I have it modified where every Saturday the whole week's worth of episodes all become available to watch. So I end up binging 21 episodes every weekend. But if I don't watch the scheduled episodes, that just means I'll catch up later, no big deal. I actually got super behind on Naruto a few times. I just didn't stress over it and took my time. If it becomes too much, there's no obligation, just reset and watch at my own pace. Thankfully, these intensely plot-driven shows make it really easy to watch a bunch of episodes in a row, even if you can feel the pacing drag. Pacing is one of those dirty anime buzzwords that really grinds my gears. I would advise against assigning value to adapting one particular way. Every story and beat of a story is different, and needs different things from the adaptation. Sometimes 4 chapters per episode is really tight and snappy, but other times it's rushed. Adapting 1 chapter may seem dragged out, but other times it can be demonstrably substantive. There's so much variation and nuance that's too much to assess in a series as long as Naruto. Not to mention how it can vary person to person. Of course you think the episode is dragging its feet when you're a manga reader who already knows what happens and just want to see the part you want to see animated. Of course it feels like the arc has gone on for years. Because it technically has gone on for years, as you've watched it week by week. But it doesn't take years to watch. Know what I mean? I'll admit to being an easily bored, distracted person. I won't usually blame the anime for not keeping my attention, unless it's actually super boring. But even then, I'll just say it wasn't for me. I don't expect the anime to enthrall me each and every second, but the more often it does, the more I'll enjoy it, right? I'll stick with it, even if I wind up feeling the urge to do something else. I'm a fidgety person. It takes effort for me to pay attention and sit still. Unless I'm somewhere like a theater setting, or it's socially inappropriate, I might do other things while watching the show. A small game that doesn't require concentration, scrolling Twitter. I have restrictions. I won't play other audio besides the show. I have to hear it, so no YouTube or music. And writing takes too much concentration, so no texting or script writing. Some people would consider this blasphemous, but you literally can't stop me, bro. So why give me or anyone else shit so long as I'm still enjoying what I'm watching? I'm sure that's what half of you are doing in this video right now, listening to it while doing something else. That's fine. I do the same thing. I don't speak for everyone, but I definitely think my attention span has gotten a lot shorter from being on social media and such. It'd be one thing if I thought the show was shit and it's my fault for not paying enough attention, but I loved the show. What else do you want? I'm spending time on this subject because I do think some people find it hard to motivate themselves to watch anime. Not that it's any of my business. You can spend your free time however you please. But if anime is something you care about and you actively want to watch more and explore what it has to offer, I find watch plans and other strategies to be a great way of accomplishing that. So the conditions and context with which I watched Naruto that allowed me to appreciate and enjoy Naruto were: I was in a positive in-person environment, experiencing a complete story that was gaining newfound appreciation without needless competition or comparison with the benefits of hindsight, and a watch plan. But how did this help maintain my passion for anime? It sounds like a lot of factors just to enjoy a TV show. I'm not saying any of this is necessary, but I do think we take for granted the circumstances we watch anime in. Something that's been on my radar lately is the average half-life of an anime fan. Anime historians John Clements and Helen McCarthy posit the half-life is 18 to 24 months. As laughably short as that may seem, we shouldn't take that lightly. They insist, although individuals are apt to claim in the heat of their fanish passions that their love of a medium is a lifelong commitment, few fans are truly so devoted. Passion is associated with heat and fire for a reason. It can burn hot for a lifetime, so long as you give it the fuel and environment to last that long. After One Piece, I already have another long series in mind, and these dedicated long watches give me a spine to branch off of and makes me want to watch more, so I can actually get to those anime that I said I would watch someday. I bet that even when I finally run out of anime to watch, I'll have watched so much for so long that even rewatches can be a fresh experience. I'll keep watching, not obsessively, but consistently. Because, at least for me, I don't want that flame of passion to ever extinguish. A single anime is made by a lot of people in all sorts of roles, and yet the result can often appear like such a seamless experience the typical viewer might not even register that different people are working in the same role on each episode. There are some roles in a production that have one person the whole time, maybe two, but there are tons of episode directors, storyboarders, script writers, and animation directors. And those roles are the ones that I want to focus on here. Really quick, just so everyone's clear on what each role does, the episode director is generally in charge of the episode, involved in all aspects one way or the other. That's why these people are sometimes also the storyboarder, a separate role where they roughly draw out and plan how each episode is paced and framed. That is separate from script writing, which is largely responsible for writing all the dialogue and adapting what happens. And this is all separate from animation directors, who are in charge of how the animation looks, correcting and checking for errors, and the general visual presentation, which is a big task that might be shared between several people per one episode. At the end of the day, all the audience sees is the story and characters. However, if you look close enough, you might start to notice subtle patterns and habits in how that story is being told, and even how the characters look. It's not consistent all the way through, which some might consider a flaw, but I think it's really cool. Some episodes are more important than others, and it's up to the staff to decide where to spend their limited time, talent, and resources. Just like how you can recognize a director by their movies, it's possible to recognize animation directors or storyboarders for their work on certain episodes. I've talked about this before with Mamoru Hosoda's TV episodes, but that's a big-name director that a lot of anime fans probably recognize. Considering how popular Naruto is, I wonder how many of these fans know the people who made the anime. They know Masashi Kishimoto, of course, as the writer and artist of the original manga, but there's a lot of other creative talents responsible for bringing Kishimoto's story to life through animation. And it's important to give credit and celebrate their artistic accomplishments so that we can better understand anime. It's fairly easy to do, too. There's a whole community of Naruto fans who've studied the staff credits. But more than that, Naruto is one of the few anime I know that fluctuates in style so noticeably, it's easy even for the layman viewer to see and appreciate it almost at a glance. Normally, animators are corrected or not allowed to be super distinctive, either due to time constraints or the vision of the main director. But with Naruto, there's a lot more flexibility given to the individual staff. This flexibility is a trademark of Studio Pierrot, from their work on Urusei Yatsura and Yu Yu Hakusho, to even works after Naruto, like Black Clover. Truth be told, I find this approach of spotty results to be much more interesting than a consistently great-looking production. If all of Naruto looked like its best moments, I would love that! You wouldn't see me complaining. But putting aside how next to impossible that actually is, I don't know how much I'd be able to personally appreciate it. I loved Heike Monogatari from last year. Every single episode is unfathomably gorgeous, but I got used to it part ways in and found myself a little complacent towards the visuals. I think the excitement of watching an anime putting its best foot forward for the most important moments, or at least what the anime considers most important, makes those moments that much more special, and the whole thing very interesting to watch. I have to stress that there is still a lot of artistry required to make every episode acceptable at minimum. Whenever I credit a certain person being responsible for something, I'm just going by the credits. Each little artistic choice could have come from several different creatives up and down the totem pole of responsibility, sometimes all at once, and they're not going to credit everybody for everything. While it might sound like I'm saying that this person is the single one to get all the credit or whatever, that's not wholly accurate. So for the sake of everyone's sanity, I'll be handling this with fair nuance. This sort of discussion is often couched in a lot of speculation, usually with key animation. Unless somebody who actually worked on the production confirms it, everything to do with who directly animated something is all presumed using educated guessing. So I'll be generally avoiding discussion of key animators, unfortunately, but realize I know that the animation directors aren't the ones who are drawing everything seen on screen. I'm doing my best here. At least I'm trying to credit episode directors, animation directors, scriptwriters, and storyboarders, and not just crediting everything to series director Hayato Date, who would be involved in close to every step of both original Naruto and Shippuden.
So major credit to him right at the start for being in that captain's chair for nearly 15 years.
The first staff person I want to give credit to is Toshiyuki Tsuru. He's a director, storyboarder, and animator for most of original Naruto's openings and endings, so the choices of what to show and the overall look and pace of those OPs are thanks to him. But Tsuru did more than OPs and EDs. There are 4 episodes from original Naruto that he both directed and storyboarded, including the one that most fans remember, episode 48. Pretty much every major hype moment that fans can remember from that fight is from Tsuru's episode, whereas the 2 episodes afterwards are still good, of course, but more typical of what you'd normally get. Tsuru, animation director Hirofumi Suzuki, and Shinji Yanagi-Numa, oh my god, I said it, are all credited this episode with 3D CG background art. And once you notice it, you can absolutely tell. In a good way. Just compare the backgrounds of this episode to the ones prior and afterwards. It's less cracked and scuffed and might stick out in places, but I think the 3D space lends to a much better sense of the area and allows for more interesting camera angles and movements. Tsuru's job as the director and storyboarder of the episode wasn't so much about how good the animation itself is, though that is a part of it, His job is more focused on the pace of an episode, how each scene is framed and plays out. He and scriptwriter Nishizono rearrange and embellish small moments that I think fans will appreciate even more than just reading the manga. I love this moment of Lee taking out a kunai to try defending against the sand, and how once Lee takes the weights off, Gaara is visibly startled by Lee's increase in speed. Those two choices could also have been from animation director Suzuki, who does the same role for all 4 of Tsuru's episodes. The animation is certainly the highlight here, but it's important to appreciate how good everything looks, all the time, in and outside the fight. The orchestration is great too, both the choice and placement of music, as well as all the quiet moments.
早々にあなたとやれるなんて嬉しい限りです。
which lend great to the tension. Though, giving proper credit, this could also be sound director Yasunori Ibina's choices. Loving the Osamu Dezaki trademarks too. The triple takes on the spin kick, the dynamic split screens, and cinematic devices like playing with camera focus. It's no wonder everybody remembers this fight so well. Now, the fun part from here is, once you know who's responsible for your favorite episode, you can then look up what other episodes they did and appreciate more of their work. You might not have even realized how good those episodes looked because you were so immersed in the story at the time. Take it from Kishimoto himself, who, after watching Run Melos, looked for other work by animation director and designer Hiroyuki Okiura, becoming that much more immersed in anime. He eventually came across Ninku, which I recently made a video on, and from that show was inspired by character designer Tetsuya Nishio, who Kishimoto would personally request for Naruto's anime. Anyway, back to Tsuru. He storyboarded and directed episodes 17 and 19 during the climax of the fight with Zabuza, so you can see the show fluctuate between Tsuru and Suzuki's work with the work of Yasunori Urata and Hiroki Kawashima. For episode 17, they created extended scenes for Haku's backstory, instead of just being told it in a few pages. Big ups to scriptwriter Michiko Yokote for that too. And episode 19 is a rousing climax for the Zabuza arc, with this great demon imagery in place of the manga's decapitation, which they probably couldn't have gotten away with on TV. The standout is definitely the animation again. This animation effect when Naruto succumbs to his rage is completely captivating. Tsuru is probably responsible for this choice, though it wouldn't be possible without whoever animated it, which at least Sakakiboro is still unsure about. It's very uncommon for TV anime to use distinct mouth shapes to better match the dialogue, but it's quite the flex when they do. I don't think that many viewers would have typically noticed it, but it's hard not to in episode 19. It helps make the faces even more emotive and alive. I have no doubt that the execution of this episode is a major contributor to the community's love for this arc. Tsuru does show up one more time as episode director and storyboarder in the anime original episode 151, even when the story is something the audience has a hard time engaging with due to the non-canon circumstance. Tsuru entertains on a moment-to-moment basis, with dynamic shot composition and a good sense of tension, as well as, of course, Suzuki's consistently detailed, smooth, and expressive animation direction. If you liked those canon episodes I mentioned, this is definitely one to check out as well. You don't even have to watch the rest of the arc that it comes from. Oh, and none of this even gets into Tsuru's work as an animator in his own right, which you can often see in his opening and ending sequences. His animation is extremely nuanced and realistic. He's a very talented guy. I'd like to continue focusing on Hirofumi Suzuki. In terms of animation directors, nobody has made such a wide-spanning and noticeable impact on the anime as a whole. He's also an animator, storyboarder, and the co-character designer for the whole show, sharing that role with Tetsuya Nishio. He's behind many of original and Shippuden's OPs and EDs too. And while his only animation director credits in original are those 4 episodes that he did with Tsuru, he finds another partner in Yasuaki Kurotsu
as the animation director for 9 Shippuden episodes.
Yasuaki Kurotsu not only directs and storyboards here, he's also credited for the screenplays of his episodes. And it turns out, oops, Kurotsu is actually just a pen name for Toshiyuki Tsuru. Yeah, it's just more Tsuru. The same guy I was just talking about earlier. Except now, he's also writing the episodes too! This dude is incredible! Tsuru, credited as Kurotsu, is the episode director, storyboarder, and scriptwriter for 5 episodes of Shippuden. But he's also credited as series director, original character designer, and 3D modeler for just 6 episodes of an anime original arc, called Shikara, or Power. It's almost suspiciously movie quality. But to me, not even that is as much of a flex as Shippuden 478, where Tsuru is the episode director, storyboarder, scriptwriter, and co-animation director with Hiroto Tanaka, and even animated a few cuts himself. He has all 4 roles for one episode. Look, I don't claim to be an expert or anything, but I've never seen that before. Except for, I guess, independent anime where it's all made by one guy. This is commercial TV anime. That's crazy. And it's not some random episode either. It's the climax of the final fight. What the fuck? It has the single best use of recap footage I've seen in an anime. I'm not hyperbolizing. A bunch of this episode is anime original, where Sasuke and Naruto are sharing a consciousness. And at one point, Sasuke is shown Naruto's memories, which is just recap footage from throughout the series. Except crucially, most of it are scenes of Naruto's journey that Sasuke had never witnessed himself before. So many moments that prove to us, the viewers, that Naruto is worthy of being Hokage, but either Sasuke was unconscious or elsewhere for. He talks about looking up to Naruto even in the brief time they were teammates. But this allows him to even further understand what Naruto's been through. The fact that the recap wasn't for the viewer as much as it was for the character is brilliant. Something I love the most about these episodes is that not all of them are fights. Shippuden episode 85 and 123 certainly are, and they're fantastic for that. But episode 82 is perhaps even more captivating with its use of lighting, tension, and framing without any flashy fights. I knew about this long take that goes on for like 2 whole minutes with Shikamaru and his father playing shogi before watching the show myself. But I didn't know it was only one part of an entire episode that was just as mesmerizing all the way through. Oh, I'm so sorry this derailed into Tsuru again. Back to Suzuki. I think this episode is clearly the best at demonstrating what a difference Suzuki makes. Take a look at the episode surrounding it. Episode 81, with animation direction by Kumiko Horikoshi, as well as episode 83, animation directed by Akira Takeuchi and Hidehiko Okano. The 3 of them animation direct a combined 72 episodes of the series. Sincere credit to them. That's a lot of hard work that was needed to get this story adapted. A lot of Shippuden looks like this. Bright, saturated colors, thick outlines, and a lot of efficient, limited animation. It's just fine. Now check out episode 82, with animation direction by Hirofumi Suzuki. The lines are thinner. My guess is to better show off the smaller nuances in the animation, because there's a lot more movement than usual. The colors seem a lot less saturated or flat. To me, this gives the episode a much more earthy atmosphere, less graphic novel, cartoonish, perhaps. The Power episodes have a lot more of this, but in 82, there's even digital compositing, which gives the colors and lighting more of a smooth, rounded gradient, like what you might see from Ufotable productions like Demon Slayer. It gives a more cinematic and photorealistic look. Even if he's only an AD in a tiny fraction of episodes, Suzuki's contributions alone made watching all 720 episodes worth it for me. Shippuden is really fortunate to have artists like him in that role, as well as everyone else that made all of this possible. Though that's not to say those are the only good-looking episodes in the show. Hell no. I'd be remiss not to mention other animation directors who are also episode directors and storyboarded their episodes. I'd like to call them triple threats. The first would be Hiroyuki Yamashita, who's the episode director, animation director, and storyboarder for 5 of the most pivotal episodes of Shippuden. The outlines aren't quite as thin as Suzuki's, but they're very soft and scuffed up, making the animation look more illustrative and appealing to me. I'm pretty sure the colors on the characters are less saturated here as well, And there's definitely subtle digital compositing in places. The results are gorgeous. And besides the animation itself, Yamashita adds a lot more to the combat from the manga, which he has to storyboard and coordinate as episode director. Not to simply fill out 20 minutes, but to make purposeful, additive content. But those are just the 5 episodes where he had all 3 roles. Want to know how many episodes he had as just animation director? How about 11 more? I remember being particularly interesting that Yamashita was involved with that are useful for comparison. The first is from Shippuden 178. It has 2 animation directors credited, Yamashita as well as Horikoshi, who I mentioned earlier. The first half of this episode looks pretty typical for Shippuden, what we know Horikoshi's animation to look like. Don't get me wrong, it's fine, but still, typical. Now, pretty much all TV anime is split into an A part and B part, which you can usually guess because it's delineated by the eye catch somewhere in the middle that signals a commercial break. This show uses a fade to black for its eye catch. Horikoshi handled the A part and Yamashita the B part. When 178 hits this fade to black in the middle, you can literally see the animation change. The colors and lines didn't change much, but you can tell in subtle ways that something is different. Notice how Naruto's hair is drawn here. There's these added cheek lines around the mouths that weren't like that a minute ago. It gives the characters more expression. Everything moves that much more, which makes for additional nuance to each movement. That's the difference a great AD like Yamashita can make. That's 2 halves of the same episode. What about the same scene by different directors? Episode 238 starts with Yamashita handling an earlier scene that had been adapted years ago, seen in episode 37, AD'd by Goro Sesha. It's a pen name for Masaharu Watanabe, future director of ReZero. Watanabe happens to be a very, very cool guy, because he's the guy who did Shippuden OP-16. It's the scene where Sakura discovers that Sai is an artist, and how he feels nothing towards his art and, by extension, his teammates. To me, the recreation by Yamashita is much more effective. I like Naruto's eyes in this shot having a lot more contrast, with one eye more open than the other. This one makes him look a lot more skeptical and biting. I love how Sakura's face looks practically hypnotized listening to Sai, whereas before she just looked a little startled. The thinner line work, desaturated color, and digital compositing, adding this eerie white glow from the sun, it makes the whole scene a lot more surreal and fascinating. Which works a lot better to me because this scene is meant to be mysterious. I'm sure some fans might handwave this as like, oh, that other one was made in 2007 with this new one was made in 2011. Technology just improved. I like to be nice to my audience, but no. Shut up. It's not about technology. That was probably just a straw man. Any scene can be enhanced through artistic choices accomplished with adequate time, talent, and care. Not simply technology, nor lots of money. Anyway, wait. Yamashita's only one triple threat here. There's Yuki Kinoshita triple threading 8 episodes of Shippuden. According to his overall staff credits, Toshiro Fuji is very new to the scene, but he is credited as a triple threat on episode 463. He does a great job, so much so that he later took over for Yamashita as head director on Boruto. Masayuki Koda also has one triple threat on episode 469, which is the second Kakashi face reveal mission, though he normally doesn't direct or storyboard. His AD work, though, is a lot broader. I love 194 for its delightfully cartoony humor. The bouncy, sketchy, and lively expressions and slapstick comedy enhances an already goofy and endearing anime original premise, which by itself is somewhat lacking from the canon material. Seriously, it's tons of fun, and Koda's animation direction is a major factor to that. It reminds me of another episode triple-threaded by Masahiko Murata, 495. I don't think I've ever seen Naruto quite this wacky and fun. It's another series highlight that's, again, not a pivotal plot point in the manga, but makes watching the whole anime worth it. Murata triple threats 6 episodes of Shippuden. He's very versatile, able to helm goofy episodes like 495, and the polar opposite, 455. Depicting the Uchiha massacre from the perspective of
Itachi, Uchi, Mangekyou in the eyes. Wanna see blood when a ninja cries. Wanna kill me, then you better get Sasuke.
Maybe not exactly for the first time, but it's arguably the best. I'd like to return to Murata later, but I still have arguably the beast, I mean, best for last. You could say he's the OG triple threat, with an episode as early as original 30. With 4 episodes overall, it's the incomparable Atsushi Wakabayashi. Needless to say, every episode this man was responsible for is an event. Not just of this anime, but animation as a medium, inspiring an entire generation of fans who wanted to become animators because of him. Must I gas him up anymore? Wakabayashi's a master. Nobody depicts the speed, scale, intensity, and visceral impact of a fight like he can. Let me be clear again that animation director does not mean that he's animating everything by himself. There's a lot of people that make every single episode possible, but his consistency is apparent. It's not just the animation that noticeably improves. The background art is somehow more rich and detailed from the last episode too. This episode retains the best use of Strong and Strike in the whole show, which is arguably one of Naruto's best music tracks. The characters are practically dancing to it, and it feels like the animation and music are racing each other with such driving speed and momentum. As an outsider, I was mercifully unspoiled to the explosive royale of Hokages. The absolute wonder and spectacle of it all is such a crucial moment to get right, because it's the earliest impression that the audience gets of how over the top and extreme the battles are going to become. It shouldn't seem weird or surprising that the final Naruto vs. Sasuke fight turns into a kaiju battle if this is what ninjas were capable of early on. If you notice between episodes, Wakabayashi had made the sky a lot stormier and darker in his episode. Maybe you take it as a continuity error, but not only does this make the fight feel more climactic, I notice how it also makes the glow of the fire attacks pop out that much more. It's really cool. Wakabayashi's episode of Naruto vs. Sasuke is the 6th of a 7-episode fight. But aside from the more pivotal moments of the story here and there, everybody remembers the fight from Wakabayashi's episode. But again, I implore you to notice, it's not just brief clips of animation. The whole episode looks this great. It's desperate, dramatic, and devastating. And I didn't just choose those words for the alliteration. Well, I guess I did. The thing that gets his animation memed on, I think, is because of what it looks like when it's not animated. As in, fans taking screenshots and chuckling at how goofy the drawing is, that's meant to be part of a sequence of still images that gives the illusion of movement. Not only is it misrepresentative of the animation it's taking from, I find it discouraging when someone takes a handful of screenshots that look bad and use those to demonstrate that this 720 episode show indeed looks that bad the entire time and that people shouldn't watch it. Well, I think it's really quite dumb. Nowhere is this done more than Wakabayashi's only Shippuden episode, 167. I'll admit, nothing in Wakabayashi's other episodes, nor any other episode I can recall, is this extreme, unhinged, and occasionally even a little ridiculous. Literally, not even Pain's voice actor, Kenyu Horiuchi, can meet the absurd intensity that his character's body is acting with.
俺の痛みはお前以上だ!
Which practically never happens in anime. I personally loved the episode for the pure spectacle. It's the only time in Naruto, but even in general, where I felt like the fight was equally epic and genuinely funny. The raw energy and precision are all there, but they're used with literal comedic timing to make Pain look stupid. Really getting his comeuppance, you could say. Some fans, well, a lot of fans, didn't appreciate that. But there's no argument to be had. It's absurdly well animated. End of discussion. But I can still understand the mixed response it got. It remains a controversial episode to this day. While the animation is indisputably great, I'm unsure if it was a great artistic choice, ultimately. The eccentric actions of Pain are uncharacteristic. His goofy faces are entertaining, but probably caused a lot of tonal whiplash with his otherwise neutral expression. He's literally supposed to be a soulless husk being remotely controlled like a robot. I didn't think Pain could make any other faces. However, I wanted to introduce a theory that I'm unsure anyone made at the time as to why it caused such a divisive reaction. Seeing it clipped out of context on Twitter is one thing, and that certainly contributed to it for outsiders. But nobody, I think, ever brings up what preceded this episode. It's 166. This is one of Tsuru and Suzuki's episodes. While both of these episodes are standouts brought to us by talented artists, that's about where the similarities stop. Before Wakabayashi's wild ride, Tsuru's episode of Hinata swooping in to save Naruto and confessing her love for him is slow, meticulously detailed, and extremely tense, harrowing, emotional. It's a serious episode. Perhaps the most serious the story's ever gotten. The show has the audience by the balls. It ends with the possible death of one of the most beloved characters. And then next episode...
行くぞ!
Looney Tunes. It's total madness. The whiplash is not merely palpable, it's searing and shocking. Even if you love both episodes like I do, it's a very strange choice. Not exactly a smart one. But damn, man, that's what makes this anime unlike anything I've ever seen. It's weird and fascinating. I could, obviously, go on. There's so much great work I didn't even mention, let alone go into sufficient detail. Also, apologies for not focusing much on other aspects like Naruto's incredible music by Toshio Masuda, Musashi Project, Yasuharu Takanashi, and Yaiba, and also the prolific Junki Takigame, who was series composition for most of Shippuden, and wrote scripts for a lot of these episodes too. I want to end this back on Masahiko Murata, who was among the staff that worked on Naruto the longest. He storyboarded and directed episode 6, 20 years ago today when I uploaded this. And he would eventually be appointed as chief director for Naruto's wedding arc in 2017. This man, and of course many others, worked on this production for 15 years. Some of them still work on Boruto today. I've said it before that it takes a lot of artistry as is to make the anime at all. Tsuru, and Wakabayashi, and Yamashita, and Suzuki, the list goes on, are all super talented, but their output only succeeded because they were able to devote the time and focus on those episodes, while the rest of the staff trudged on with a new episode every week. Those guys are the real heroes. Maybe I'm being too optimistic about the production, and there are some episodes that are actually pretty ass. I guess my standards are a bit low because, man, I know I could never be cut out for animation. I never want to spit in the eye of someone who works in that field. And that's without the platitudes about the bad working conditions. This show is a damn miracle. 74 volumes of manga adapted in a captivating and exciting way. Few anime are as lucky as Naruto. And I hope fans never take that for granted. Don't just look up the fights on YouTube. Check it out for yourself. Maybe it's time for a rewatch. And to the artists that poured their hearts into this miracle, I wish I had the time to list all of your names. But know that your effort is inspiring. I give you all the credit in the world.
If you believe it.
I remastered the opening if you couldn't tell.
Here I am with my ninja clan. Ninja clan, here we stand. Naruto, I'm on my way. Naruto, I'll be okay. Getting ready to fight on sight. Got my best friends by my side. Sasuke, he's really cool. Sakura, the beautiful.
My favorite character in Naruto is Hinata Hyuga. She made every scene better just by being there. My eyes would light up every time she was on screen. I'd smile whenever she spoke. And before I go any further than that, I must insist, I'm not in love with this fictional character. After all, she's Naruto's wife, and who am I to covet another man's wife? This isn't a matter of actual romantic feelings, it's the feeling any fan gets from their favorite characters. In other words, I think she's best girl. At first I wanted to write a character analysis about Hinata, but thankfully I realized how boring and done to death that already was. And besides, that wouldn't have properly conveyed why she was my favorite. This is also not the first time I, as an anime fan, have had this happen, where I absolutely love a character so much it automatically makes the show better. But I don't think I've ever seen it seriously talked about before, despite how common this is. So why not use Hinata as an example to explore this concept of best girl? I think for most anime fans, there's a special feeling we get picking out best girl, or best boy, or my MC, and therefore getting a heightened sense of enjoyment from that character. Once a character holds that distinction for you, then the whole show is better merely for that character's presence. That character can do no wrong, even if their arc doesn't go where you want it to go or something. None of those conventional metrics of quality matter. Every time this character is on screen, it's a good time. It's not so much that they're a well-written or strongly developed character, though it can obviously be that too. But this is more like having a basic delight from that character, for even the simplest of reasons. Maybe it's just because the character's hot, or really cute, or says funny things, or is super cool. You like how they fight, or just how they talk and act, their tics, habits, mannerisms, personality, what they wear, or seeing them in different outfits. And it doesn't have to be all of those things. It could be only some of them, or even just one thing. Maybe what they've been through resonates with you. Maybe they remind you of yourself, or it's someone you strive to be like. Sometimes it's love at first sight, their first introduction, or spotting them in the OP, or even before you ever watched the show. Maybe you just saw them posted online somewhere. Other times it isn't until long after you finished watching do you realize how much you actually love that character, and you even miss them somehow. There's a shift from liking a character in the context of the show to enjoying them metatextually, like putting them in collages, making or searching for fan art of them, even making them your profile picture so you get to see them more often. When you put it like that, it can sound really obsessive or dumb or crazy, but consider if you've ever done that before. I sure have. Most anime fans have. That's literally where the anime profile pic comes from. I think this quality is invaluable to the experience of watching anime, more than we ever typically talk about. This attachment to characters we like is crucial to short-term and long-term enjoyment of the show itself, and perhaps anime as a whole. If you watch an anime you'd consider a 10 out of 10 on a technical basis, but don't consider any characters to be favorites, that anime probably carries as much, or perhaps less weight, than an anime with a character that you love, but maybe the whole show isn't 10 out of 10. For example, I consider Belladonna of Sadness a favorite. I don't really use numerical ratings, but if I did, I'd say it's a 10. However, it's just as much a favorite of mine as Aoharu X Kukanju, which I would not give a 10, but Tachibana is one of those favorite characters of mine. She's still my profile picture on Mal and Kitsu. As someone who loves making analysis videos and discussing anime, I'm noticing this aspect is something that's practically never considered. It feels like we have to put those feelings aside when we want to assess an anime's quality. But why? To me, it's a genuine factor. I seriously think Naruto is a better anime for having Hinata in it. There's a character in Bleach who I have a similar affection for. It's Nell. She's great. She's my favorite. She only appears in a fraction of the show, so I don't like the show as much. Nell is still in it though, and she's good, so I think Bleach is good. I like Bleach. I also really like Tatsuki, but she also doesn't appear very much, and also gets a dumb ponytail. Why? Why make it look like she has short hair with pointless extensions? Why would you just make her...
Feel alright?
If those characters were present more, I'd like the show more. Simple as that. Don't you hate that feeling of watching an anime and it's focusing on characters you don't especially care for instead of the ones you do? Even if it's necessary for the story to make it better on some objective metric, it doesn't really matter to me. I want to see characters I like! If I happen to feel that way about Rukia or Orihime, I'd probably adore Bleach. Maybe that's why some fans do. Or maybe some fans don't like it as much because it didn't have enough Chad. To be clear, there's no right or wrong answer here. If Lee was your favorite character in Naruto, I can see why you might not like Naruto as much as a Sasuke fan. Just because I think Hinata is best girl, and she is, doesn't mean she's best girl to everyone. What about Sakura fans? Ino fans? Tsunade fans? 10-10 fans? Hey, you never know. They could be out there. What if there's a character you despise that actively makes the show worse? Yikes. Guess you're not going to enjoy that show as much. But that's just you. We're talking about how much we subjectively enjoy these anime, but I think that factor of enjoyment influences much of one's analysis whether they'd admit to that or not. There is such a thing as good faith or bad faith analysis. Right now you're watching a very good faith analysis. You're allowed to feel however you want. People can like or dislike a show in any which way, but I wish we could be a little more honest about that in analysis. That we just didn't get what we wanted out of it, or there was a character we actively disliked and that's why we didn't come away liking it. Instead of trying to justify our disdain by searching for actual flaws of the show, or calling those characters flaws. I'd like to get the word flaw out of the conversation. I think it's better to frame art constructively instead of saying that the art did something incorrectly. It's okay. You just didn't like it. Too bad. Personally, I don't think you should dwell on it, or try to make other people feel miserable because of it. Some people, like myself, aren't bothered in the slightest that Rock Lee doesn't get to do a whole lot after his fight with Gaara. You're free to call Naruto bad because of that, but most fans will not take you seriously if you put it that way. That's why you don't see this perspective in critical analysis. It reveals a vulnerability. Whatever is said about a work always has that basic factor of enjoyment behind it. You can put it aside or bury it, but it can't be separated. You're bringing this aspect up for a reason. It elicited a positive or negative emotion out of you. Even if you're just talking passively about something that you find interesting in a work, you had to enjoy that work even a little bit. It becomes much harder to otherwise. I'm not interested in talking about things that I'm not interested in. I believe media analysis is completely, thoroughly subjective. Let me hand this off to Roger Ebert for a minute.
I feel about young people writing or any criticism, either implicitly or not, it's in the first person. And it's not a science, and you're not talking about the truth. And you're not saying, this is what happened. What you're saying is, this is what happened to me. This is how I feel. That it's their own view and not some kind of a scientific, objective overview, because there's no such thing as objectivity in the arts. It's all subjective, and you might as well admit that. Now, a lot of critics are almost shy about confessing that they've had any kind of emotional reaction. If you laughed, say you laughed. If you cried, say you cried. If you were bored, say how bored you were. But don't indicate that in a way you were kind of this aloof Olympian figure standing above the groundlings in the audience and observing with amusement their pathetic little reactions, because you were there and the review should communicate what you thought.
So then, why make analysis? What am I doing this for? Well, I do it to put what I'm feeling into words, to explain myself to others, to make sense of it, not just for the audience, but for me, who's doing the analysis. But YouTube videos in particular are skewed not towards analysis, but towards persuasion, convincing people we're right. But I don't agree with that approach. I'd rather aim for people to understand me rather than think I'm correct.
Y'all feel like that?
Basically, what I'm saying is, you should disclose who you thought Best Girl was before I hear you out about anything else. Now let's finally talk about Hinata. If I had to pick one physical feature of any character that gets me to like them right off the bat more than anything else, it's the hair. My patrons know, and I'm making it clear here, I love girls with short hair. Long is okay, but it's even better when it's bundled up. I really couldn't explain why. Girls with boyish hair is great, but honestly, when it's more shaped and feminine, I like it even more. Hinata's hair changes between time skips. I think the long hair is fine. I understand she probably couldn't get away with such a youthful looking hairstyle when she gets older, but man, nothing beats her hair in part 1. It's so perfectly shaped. I love the sharp, neat side bangs and fine feather pointed back. I'm sorry, I don't know hair terms. There's some angles where you can see the back of her hair pointing out either side. Love that. The hair bounces around well in animation too. It always looks so good. Both the shape and color manage this balance of distinct anime hair, but somehow realistic too. As much as I love it, the hair is not what draws attention. That's obviously her eyes. When you first see them, they're very strange. Off-white and no pupils. It's actually her family's ocular powers, the Byakugan. She does have pupils, but you only see the indents of them pressed against her iris when she's using her powers, where her eyes tense up and these veins protrude off her face. I think it looks kinda creepy when her brother Neji does it, but Hinata pulls it off and makes it look badass. Know the difference. It's the contrast of her timid personality with this fierce-looking power. It's so awesome. You know how they say that eyes are the windows of the soul? Hinata's eyes feel like the windows have steam on them, so sometimes you can't tell what she's thinking. However, the lack of detail allows the shape of the eyes to become even more pronounced. So to me, that makes her eyes more noticeably expressive through their shape. It makes for a neat contrast. She otherwise has very dainty features. Her nose, mouth, and hands are all small, and she's shorter in stature too. Although all those features, including her hair, grow more adult-sized after the time skip. By the way, I'm trying very hard not to make this analysis cliché and say something like, this relates to her characterization, because connecting it to some brilliant character writing is not why I'm making this. I'm not trying to prove I'm right here. I'm just saying I like all these features and I enjoy discussing them in an elevated way through making a video. Also, cringe. I don't want to be like Neji psychoanalyzing her. She lives in that dude's head rent-free. Granted, same. Anyway, there's a reliable pattern in anime where having features like the nose and mouth smaller and the eyes bigger makes the character more cute. But I appreciate Tetsuya Nishio and Hirofumi Suzuki's character design philosophy almost never fully erasing the nose. Hinata has a normal nose like everyone else, but it is rounded a bit, so it's still cute. And I like when she smiles, which isn't too often because she's very reserved. So when she smiles, it's usually very slight. But when she smiles fully, like being excited or really happy, that lights me up, man. I like both of her main outfits too. Her whole team wearing baggy, furry sweatshirts and long pants is a strong Arctic aesthetic that I happen to relate to if you know me personally. I'm the kind of freak like them who wears sweatshirts in the middle of summer. The outfit especially complements Hinata's other icier qualities with the dark hair color, light gray eyes, and pale skin, which is another excellent contrast with her warm and kind attitude. The pale skin makes it much easier to see when she blushes, which she often does, being very shy. And no feature of hers proves that warmth more than her voice, performed by Nana Mizuki. I'm no stranger to timid anime characters with soft, dainty voices, but dude? You can't beat that! It's high-pitched without feeling cloying. It's light but doesn't sound fragile. She's often so overcome with nervousness that when she does speak full sentences, you're hanging on every word she says. I'm a big fan that she's not the kind of character who has to dump exposition, so you never take for granted how great a performance Mizuki is giving. I don't know how she pulls it off, but there's an inherent strength and depth to the voice too. It's seamless going from gentle and high-pitched to forceful and full, giving Hinata a powerful inner spirit without clashing with that shy exterior. If the hair is the feature that gets me to like a character off the bat, the voice is what keeps me around. He loves it! He might be addicted. So, I'm a bit of a worrywart. I hope this doesn't come off as me objectifying Hinata. I thought it was important to go further than just, I like her design. These features are what endeared me to her so immediately, so that no matter where her character went or how much character development she wound up getting, which ended up not being a ton, I enjoyed watching her in the show, and I don't need to justify it with, no, she's actually a good character, you guys. Though, it does help that she is also a very good character. I skimmed through the entire series for moments featuring Hinata, and it honestly wasn't a lot considering how long the series is and her role in the story. She's not a central character in Naruto. I find it difficult to even call her important to the core themes of the story writ large. Let's run through it super quick. Her first appearance is technically episode 1, but she's not properly introduced until the Chunin exams. Hinata gets a little something during the paper exam and a little something during the Forest of Death, but her first significant moment is her fight with Neji. Afterwards, she gets a single one-on-one scene with Naruto before going unconscious for most of Konoha Crush. Totally absent from Tsunade search and Sasuke retrieval. Basically, Chunin exams is all she gets from original Naruto, aside from filler. Then we don't even see her at all in Shippuden until after the first Kazekage rescue, and even then it's practically a cameo. She doesn't join them for Tenchi Bridge or hit on in Kakuzu, so now that's 6 consecutive entire story arcs that she gets absolutely nothing. But finally, she gets one mission with Naruto during Itachi's pursuit, and then nothing for a while longer. Her only significant moment comes over 160 episodes into Shippuden, and even then, it's pretty much one scene. And then she gets almost nothing to do in Kage Summit, or the whole war arc, save for one very good moment. And then she gets a significant focus in the last Naruto the movie, before marrying Naruto at the end. When you look at it this way, Hinata seems extremely underutilized. Perhaps even a wasted character. But I actually disagree. She, like every character in the series, has a role to play in Naruto's story. And frankly, I would much rather that she gets a few moments that matter and are emotionally significant than having her present the entire time, but never making much of a difference. Hinata is pretty much about 3 things: loving Naruto, improving herself, and her relationship to her family. In that order, her very first appearance, at least in the anime, before we even know her name or who she is, the audience sees her silently cheering Naruto on in class. Sorry. Hinata is very shy, and this is in her head, so of course Naruto has no idea. But she is the first on-screen character who's on Naruto's side. This is a big deal because Naruto's loneliness and alienation is so fundamental to his journey as a character. His goal is to win everyone's approval. That includes the audience. You can't just assume viewers will be on the titular character's side. Ashita Joe, for example. Joe's introduction has a lot going on, but one of the key moments for me is when Sachi asks for his name.
Joe. Yabuki Joe.
It's extremely on the nose. Practically propaganda, but it's very endearing. I've never forgotten that moment. Hinata functions the same here, encouraging the audience to cheer for Naruto, even if he didn't know it. We, the viewers, did. That makes Hinata a day one homie. Iruka is the other day one homie. Technically the true day one homie. He's the first character that Naruto knew who believed in him. The audience would eventually come to learn that, of course, his parents loved and believed in him too, and he turns out to have a friendship with Shikamaru, Choji, and the third Hokage, but all of that is retroactive. In terms of episode 1, Iruka and Hinata are day one homies. Oh, what's that? Oh, you're telling me that scene with Hinata is not in the manga, but it's anime original?
Don't care. I don't care.
Interesting. As it so happens, that Ashino Joe scene I mentioned is also original. Now, I'll admit it. Hinata was one of those characters that I already knew about before watching Naruto. I knew she was basically the Ginny Weasley who the hero would get together with in the end. But I remember being absolutely smitten that she had a crush on him from the very beginning, making their romance less arbitrary and more inevitable. We learn later about 3 different ways of how that attraction came to be. At least in the anime, because apparently there is no such scene anywhere in the manga. So let's take a closer look. I might be missing one, but the 3 scenes I know of are Shippy 166, 480, and the last. There's no canon chronology of these events. I mean, you could argue technically none of this is canon, but humor me. I think I can put these in a logical order. I think their first meeting is episode 480, since the two of them seem noticeably younger here. Hinata has just run away from a memorial service for Neji's father. It's important to know why, since there's no dialogue explaining this. Also because there's probably a lot of manga-onlys watching that I want to give more step-by-step detail. Hinata's just turned 3 years old, and has begun combat training to inherit her family's role as its successor. We see how she isn't all that good at it, and hear how she doesn't even like it that much. Hinata wishes she could switch places with Neji, who is much stronger, but also part of the branch family, who are forced to protect the main family like an indentured servant. Neji encourages her, saying he'll make her stronger, and swears to protect her, but it doesn't seem to work that much. I see this as she has to be the one who wants to get strong first, before Neji can help her, and promising to protect her only further enforces this clan system that she clearly isn't fit for. The next scene, we're at the memorial service, and Hinata sees Neji breaking down into tears. Understandably so, since his father has passed away. And we see her leave the ceremony and run out into the snow, tripping and crying along the way. She feels alone and helpless, which is made all the more painful knowing she's part of such a well-off family. Eventually, she can't run anymore and collapses at a street lamp, and she's spotted by a boy who asks what she's doing. Hinata can't even say anything because she's absolutely distraught. He asks where her house is, and she doesn't seem to know. So he takes her hand and he goes to find her house. No promises, no reason or reward, he just saves her. When they find where she lives, the boy is surprised how she could be crying when she lives in such a big house, presumably with such a big family. He says he doesn't have anyone, but he never cries. Then he smiles and leaves. Hinata's father comes to lecture her, but she drowns him out. She thinks back to Neji crying and the boy smiling. And to me, she's thinking about who she'd rather put her faith in. This might seem kind of insensitive with regards to Neji. He's still capable of protecting her, but should be allowed to be mournful at his father's passing. Hinata's also 3 years old, so I can understand why she thinks that way. After that is where I think the flashback from 166 happens. She's blushing and aghast at seeing the boy again, only this time being ostracized by the village as the Ninetales. She's told to avoid him, but it makes sense why Hinata remains interested in him, because he saved her before. By this point, Hinata wants to become a strong and kind ninja like her parents, but she's beaten by her sister who's 5 years younger than her, earning her father's disapproval. Running away once again, Hinata bumps into some bullies who do what bullies do, forcing her to bow and apologize. It's ironic her family trains her so well physically and ignores everything else. Even though she could technically kick their ass, she's so emotionally compromised and doesn't have the mental fortitude to resist. Out of the blue comes dat boy, oh shit, who happens to be around because they're bullying Hinata next to his favorite swing. I like to think this is where Hinata first learns his name, Naruto Uzumaki, who's gonna be the Hokage someday. She shows surprise at this. He's hated by everyone in town, and yet he wants to be like the mayor? I think the concept of having one's own goal like that is foreign to Hinata, who's told she's had this predestined path in life. The bullies smack him, but he doesn't seem fazed by it at all. He gets back up. He fails a clone jutsu and embarrasses himself, and still doesn't give up. Before she can even react, Hinata is already found by her attendant, the bullies have run off, and Naruto is unconscious. And she's taken away before she can see if he's okay. Never mind to say thank you. The last scene is from the last. Hinata is being picked on by bullies again, and the scene plays out pretty much the same way, except Hinata isn't whisked away by her family this time. The bullies ruin Naruto's scarf and they run off, so this time she gets to thank him for standing up for her, smiling as he runs off. This scene factors more into her role in the last, where she knits a similar scarf as a present, but that's essentially how she comes to love Naruto. The last Naruto the movie is literally Hinata and Naruto act like a real couple together and they kiss the movie. You can't get better fan service than that. I'll admit to having enjoyed this movie a lot more on initial viewing than subsequent closer inspection, but I still enjoy it. Besides the drab, I am anime original, it's a fantastic bonus adventure exploring Hinata and Naruto's relationship after the war. I was worried she would be kidnapped early and they'd be separated for most of the movie, but thankfully, it's a little more complex than that, and she's only kidnapped halfway into the movie. Great. I love the motif of the scarf she knits for him as something she's working on slowly and diligently, and even when it gets destroyed, Hinata gets right back to knitting it, only to have it torn up again. But no matter what shape it's in by the end, Naruto cherishes and accepts it. Would rather do without the birdcage moment, fucking brainwashing, and I don't know, fighting on the moon is a little ridiculous. But yeah, I cried watching them returning to Earth, running through all their memories. Naruto confessing back to Hinata. I think it was awesome, and certainly more than what you get in the manga. All you get in the manga are these scenes of her admiring Naruto from afar or hidden because she's shy, which are endearing and accurate to her character, but they don't give the reader a compelling reason. Naruto's thoughts on Hinata aren't so integral to me either. These memories she has of him are from when he was younger and less hyperactive than how he is at the start of the series, but I don't think that contradicts his initial impression of her during the tuning exams. He calls Hinata weird, gloomy, and shy, who always averts her eyes when he looks at her. That is pretty much how she acts around him here. Like most of these retroactive scenes, he doesn't seem to remember any of them directly. But I think it makes sense, since Hinata can be such a non-presence and she hardly interacts with him directly. It's not reciprocal. What's important is that she remembers them. These are memories important to her that dictate her choices. It's important to understand why Hinata loves Naruto because it informs the rest of her character. She wants to improve, change, and get stronger after being inspired by Naruto. She practically never talks about her clan or family situation beyond wanting to be strong like her parents when she was younger, until they cast her aside and don't believe in her for shit. But you know who does believe in her? Dat boy. I really enjoy this kind of love interest. Instead of someone that the protagonist pines for, it's somebody who truly loves him first. And while it is typical in being unrequited for most of the series, Hinata's the only character who sincerely feels this way about Naruto, and she's the one who gets to confess it in the single greatest way I've ever fucking seen.
You are not allowed to hurt Naruto.
Run away. You are not his opponent.
How dare you hurt my man as you are so weak?
How did you do?
Because I recharge $1 for 100.
At this point, 165 episodes deep into Naruto Shippuden, I was enjoying it, but not as much as I think I could have been. It just felt like it was missing something. I literally remember bemoaning to my roommates that Hinata hadn't gotten anything in Shippuden yet. And since I knew about the epic pain fight, 167, little crazy stuff, I wanted to watch that stretch of episodes with them. And the way 166 starts, with a new flashback, and it cuts to that gorgeous shot of Hinata, I knew.
But you can't do this to me.
I really want to do a manga comparison here. The anime adapts chapter 437, but it's simply incredible how much the anime improved this scene. I mentioned this episode in the earlier segment, how this was a Tsuru and Suzuki episode, but I want to give it the proper attention. Suzuki's style from his prior episodes is consistent and noticeable, but what's new are the highlights to Hinata's hair, formed by compositing instead of graphically drawn. It's a small choice that heightens this episode as something special. It's storyboarded more cinematically, with tons of wide shots, characters centered in frame, and a few surreal cutaways during the flashback, which I think very expertly cut in between the manga material at specific story beats. I remember seeing this shot for the first time thinking, it's such an inspired choice to have Shizune's body framed as the focal point instead of just letting the scene be filled with talking heads. I love how well this episode signals that Hinata is about to play a significant role. It doesn't come completely out of nowhere. The chapter's title page does give some indication, but it's not always a reliable hint. And besides that, it's not as impactful of a choice as an anime original flashback, which not only hints at Hinata and her love for Naruto, but also the Nine-Tail transformation at the end as well. What's crazy is that they adapt 12 of the 16 pages in just the first half of the episode. The bulk of the second half is completely original, and they don't even cover the 2-page spread at the end. I obviously wasn't there when this chapter came out, but let's be honest. How many fans were talking about that cool QB form more than the core emotional beat of this chapter? I think just knowing that he's about to transform is a much stronger finisher. But even that first half where they're very by the book, they make a few slight changes. I love having Pain and Nagato share this line, showing that they're the same person instead of starting the chapter with the two faces. They're both simply refreshers for the audience, but the anime's choice is creepier and almost sinister. They swap page 4 and 5. It's a very minor adjustment, but I think it does flow a bit better, from Hinata to Neji and his team, to back at the village, to Naruto and Pain. Again, with that flashback mixed in too. Then, the absolutely unthinkable. Hinata rushes in to save Naruto from Pain. The manga gets credit for originating this plot point, of course, but in terms of execution, the anime surpasses it. I think the manga's impact hits incredibly hard. Having her suddenly there works great as a page turn, but if the anime cuts straight to this shot, I think it'd be kind of anticlimactic. So those quick shots of her running and jumping further emphasize how she's the only one rushing in to help him. Intercutting Naruto and Pain's reactions with that slow motion shot of her descent is smart too, letting that shot stick better in the viewer's mind. I also really like the addition of this light source in their reactions. It gives this kind of symmetry to those shots, which make it seem like they're reacting equally surprised. Also, it's a way better choice to let that moment play out with her striking the ground, repelling Pain, and then cutting to her attendant. This is very minor, but swapping the two lines here just makes more sense to me. But the more important addition is one of the major reasons for including that flashback. She says, "This time, I'm going to save you." Thinking back on it, this is the first time Hinata actually sees Naruto in serious mortal danger herself, even though we've already seen it as an audience many times already. Of course she wants to go in and save him, no matter how dangerous it might be. Except now with this flashback, there's also a narrative parallel. She finally gets to return the favor and protect him, to be his hero. The confession itself is simply mesmerizing. Suzuki carefully and expertly rotating her character with 2D animation, keeping it centered on Hinata because this is her defining moment, instead of cutting away to random shit like Naruto's eye twice, a black screen, and Pain for some reason. Needless to say, this confession has absolutely nothing to do with Pain. And instead of cutting to random shots that frankly aren't that interesting, the anime chooses to cut back to moments of her and Naruto from the series that mattered to her, and rightly cuts to Naruto's whole face instead of Pain's, after Hinata says she isn't afraid to die defending him. And, well, look, I don't want to be such a nitpicking jerk during one of the best emotional moments of the story that makes me tear up, but I think it's better that she isn't in a fighting pose or has her Byakugan activated. I like that she's calm and relaxed and fully confident. The subtle smile, oh my god, it's so close to her face. It's stunning. And then there's an entire half of the episode left. It just keeps getting better.
Anything's possible. Anything's possible!
So, it's okay if you haven't seen a Red Naruto. All you need to know for context is that Hinata does not stand a chance against Pain. She can fight, but she's not in, like, the top 10, or 20, or 5th. She can't beat him. And everybody in show and out knows that. So in the manga, she charges at Pain with an attack we haven't seen before, and predictably he pushes her away with basically the force. Aye! She's down. Game over. In the anime, however, Hinata stances up looking ready to charge him, but suddenly twists around and breaks off one of Naruto's constraints. Oh shit! Genius! If she frees Naruto, they have a chance. Neither Pain, nor Naruto, nor the viewer, nor the manga readers expected that. Hinata goes to break another one, but gets pushed back. Like Naruto in the flashback, she gets up, almost unfazed, but not sure what hit her. So she charges at Naruto to try again, but is pushed aside, this time with Pain stepping in between them. Now is when she concentrates and reveals her new attack. Only it's much more exciting. Not just because of the animation or music, but now that Hinata's been knocked back twice and backed into a corner, she has this incredibly raw streak of blood running down her face and teeth. She's more ferocious looking than her attack! But even better, instead of charging head on, it cuts to Pain's face with his eyes darting to the left as Hinata surprises him with her speed. This catches him off guard and is forced to dodge several of her attacks instead of pushing her right away. Oh my god, is she actually holding her own against him? But just when he's about to do another push, Nagato flinches, coughing up some blood from the damage he's already taken from Naruto, which allows Hinata to land a hit. Unexpectedly for her, Naruto, Pain, the viewer, and the manga readers! She uses this chance to try and free Naruto again, but only manages to knock out one more restraint before getting launched very high into the air, which is much more brutal and lethal than simply one of Pain's pushes. She falls some 100 feet and hits the ground full force. But somehow, it's not over yet. Remembering how Naruto always got back up, she manages to get back on her feet, limps, collapses, and crawls her way back to Naruto. Pain doesn't stop any of this for reasons that'll be known soon enough, but I want to give her serious praise for this moment. Suzuki and crew made this scene so incredibly harrowing, but also uplifting. You can see Hinata shaking uncontrollably trying to get back up. The gasps from Mizuki are agonizing. The blood dripping on her face isn't so badass anymore. It's painful. When she gets up, you can see the small crater where she landed. It's so understated it seems more realistic. It almost has more devastating impact than the town-sized crater they've been fighting in. As she makes her way to the love of her life, she flashes back to the same scenes we saw earlier, only it's accompanied by Naruto's voice. I love the smile on her face, remembering the time Naruto said he liked people like her. She probably never heard that before in her life. You see them both on the ground. She's crawling towards him while he's tearing up. Bro, they're practically married already! Pain is baffled. What is she doing this for, knowing she'll die? And I love that her last words here aren't her confession, like they were in the manga. She was able to prove what she said with the actions she took, and she justifies her actions the same way Naruto would. She stands by what she says. That is her ninja way. Their ninja way. All anime original, baby. Best girl.
Ugh.